Hey everyone, welcome back to the next segment of the First Gen Psychologist. I'm Dr. Lisette, aka the First Gen Psychologist. My pronouns are she, her, ella. I'm a licensed psychologist. I'm a leadership coach. I'm a speaker, a writer, and today I am your host. And we are going to be talking about something really important, which is diet culture, challenging oppressive food narratives. And we will be speaking with Doctora Hortencia Jimenez. Before I go into sharing a little bit more about her, I just want to share with you all the purpose of this series. So, the purpose of this series is to cover topics that destigmatize mental health, as well as topics of personal development and empowerment centered on the first gen experience. And so, this is such an important topic for us to unpack and to talk through because honestly, as I was preparing just for this talk, thinking about all of the oppressive food narratives that I've internalized, the way they impact the people who I work with, the people who I love and care for. And so I love doing these talks because I also learn so much from them. So today we'll be learning from, like I mentioned, Dr. Hortencia Jimenez, who is a professor, author, speaker, and health coach. So Doctora Hortencia Jimenez is from Huichol ancestry. She was born in the Sierra Madre in the state of Nayarit, Mexico, and immigrated to the United States as a child. She holds a BA, MA, and Ph.D. in sociology, and she is also a certified health coach. We have an expert in the house, okay? Expert. Dr. Jimenez is a full-time sociology professor at the community college and currently working on a co-edited undergraduate textbook on Latinx studies with Sage Publishing. If you all don't know what that is, it's a really big deal. So just do this with me. It's a really big deal. Dr. Jimenez, or Doctora Jimenez, like I like to say, her work centers on dismantling diet culture from a social and racial justice framework and helping Latinx heal their relationship with food and tapping into their ancestral wisdom and integrating an intuitive eating framework. You can listen to her podcast, which is Dismantling Diet Culture. I don't know if I can say the full name on this platform, so I'll say Dismantling Diet Culture, Being Calladita. It's on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. And so welcome, Doctora Jimenez. It's so nice to have you. How are you?
Gracias. Thank you so much for the beautiful introduction. I almost got teary eyes.
This is you. This is you. I know sometimes on paper we forget how amazing we are until someone else says it. Everything
Yeah,
that you do and everything you've done has been such an amazing gift.
thank you. And it's an honor to share the space with you. I appreciate you. I really honor all the work that you do, and I have a lot of respect. So this really means a lot to me, being with another Latina woman of color in this space.
Thank you, Doctora. So we can get into how special this is all the time, but I will always say, Doctora Jimenez has been such an integral part of my community as I'm entering this space of wanting to be an educator when it comes to destigmatizing mental health and really increasing accessibility to information around mental health and wellness, particularly for the first gen community and the Latinx community, because those are both communities that are just so dear to my heart. And so she's been with me since day one, I like to say. And so we're gonna learn today is another thing. So let's get started on this learning. So let's just get started with something that seems so simple, but is so much more complex. What is diet culture? How does it manifest in our daily lives?
Yes. So I am a sociologist, and I'm speaking as a sociologist, and I place a front and center systems of oppression. So, in looking at diet culture, we need to look at it as a system that is structured in our society, that is embedded in the institutions of our society. It is about ideologies and practices rooted in white supremacy, rooted in racism, rooted in all the isms, heteronormativity, notions of moral value, able bodies. That is real, and then that is at the intersection and grounded on anti-blackness and fat
Mhm.
phobia, which I know it's one of the questions you have later on. All these intersections of oppression that marginalize bodies, people, BIPOC, queer folks, transgender, non-binary, gender fluid individuals. So you can imagine that it really is very exclusionary and very oppressive. And where do we see it? We breathe it. We see it everywhere. And I want to begin by mentioning that the first institution is the family. So where does diet culture live and thrive? In la casa. It's at home with our parents, with our tias or tios, your grandparents, family members who body shame you, who shame you for the food that you eat. So that is the first place where you become aware and conscious that there's something wrong with your body, which there's nothing wrong. It's these ideas that we have, because I include myself, we have internalized, right? So we see it in the family, we see it in the workplace, co-workers, jokes that they may make, microaggressions related to your body or anything. We see it in the grocery store, magazines, the food. Social media is one of the big institutions the huge institution that plays a big role in perpetuating this oppressive ideologies centered on thinness, on whiteness, on heteronormativity, the healthcare system, the fitness industry, and I can go on and on. So basically, diet culture is everywhere. So that's the lens that I'm bringing, and we breathe it. And when I say when we breathe it, it's like these invisible particles, because it's like invisible. It's so normalized that we don't even question it, and we take it as a fact that this is the reality and this is how it's going to be. And I'm here to tell you that no, we need to challenge this.
Yes, and Doctora, it is in everything that we do, and so I'm going through I guess, like, I have a big year ahead in terms of my personal life. I have a big personal milestone. I'm getting married this year, and no, thank you. I'm really excited. But what I've noticed is, whenever I shop for anything, for my dress, or when I'm, I find myself feeling a bit more insecure than I ever have been. And there's so many more questions that people ask around my body, more so than ever before. And are you shredding for the wedding? Are you, trying to,
lose weight?
Lose weight? You think and it's hard because I, as an individual, have been wanting to just make some healthier habits and change and just do things for my health and wellness that I've been wanting to prioritize. And in part of that, I may lose weight. And there's this part of me that gets so triggered and upset when someone asks me about it, because I'm like, I mean, I might lose weight, but it's for me. It's not for this wedding. It's for this thing that's important to me for my health. And it's uncomfortable because in that moment, I'm just like, oh, no, I'm not doing that. My body is fine. But I share this because as I think about, that I say it can impact us so differently in our day-to-days, but just in a personal level, going through any kind of big life change, it's so interesting how easy it feels or how comfortable people are commenting on your body.
Yes. And that's one of the things is like, we, especially, as a Mexicana, as an immigrant, as a Latina, it is so normalized in our families. The first thing that family says is they comment about your body. They don't even ask how you're doing. The first thing is like if that is the most important thing about you, but it's not, and they feel so entitled. And that's where we need to begin to disrupt those messages and reorient them to other things that are more important in our lives. And another point that I wanted to make too is that I am part of like the anti-diet movement or that narrative, right? But as a sociologist and a health coach, and just as a human being, as a person, I am not judgmental and I don't judge. And I embrace body autonomy and people's decisions and choices of what they want to do if they want to lose weight. I'm not here to shame to do that. And I think that's one of the problems of the anti-diet movement is shaming people for wanting to lose weight. I'm not here to do that at all. I'm here to help people understand this system and how it impacts. And if weight loss is your goal right now, that's fine. If you want to do something else later on, and recognizing that our bodies change, like you said, big milestones, transitions. I lost my grandmother last year. I lost weight. I'm a health coach, and I was like, Hortencia, you need to eat. It's been like 3-4 hours, and it was very hard. So when you're getting married, when you're depressed, when you lose a family member, when you're moving, when there's divorce, disruptions, transitions in life, You
Yeah.
think your body's just going to stay static?
I
No, it's
it's
going
so
to change.
it's
So we
good.
need to acknowledge and normalize that our bodies are not static. Our bodies
Yeah.
are supposed to change.
Yeah. And, you know, I love what you said that, because I think that is what is underneath sort of that experience I have, that discomfort I feel is also almost a fear of, well, if
Yes.
I do want to lose some weight, does that make me, does that mean I'm engaging in unhealthy diet culture, you know, and in wanting to hold that balance. And I think that's
Yeah.
part of it. And so I really
Yes.
appreciate you saying that. It's like,
Mhm.
with anti-diet,
Mhm.
I guess, advocates,
Yes.
sometimes the messaging is like, oh,
Mhm.
even if you want to lose weight, that's bad.
Yes, yes, and that's why, we can relate and understand, and having a cultural lens that is relevant to our communities is very important, because the last thing we want to do is continue to create harm. And that's one of the ways we do it, by shaming people who want to lose weight. Like, en serio?
I know you say that. So I think I had a question, but I think this question is a bit more fitting for where we're at right now in our
Mhm.
conversation, which is, how can individuals recognize and challenge their own participation in
Yes,
diet culture? And so you
yes.
mentioned a few ways, but
Yes, yes, and if you don't mind, given that you shared, and I really want to thank you for being vulnerable and sharing that experience, because it takes a lot of courage, and the community who is watching. I want to build on that. So when you said, like, you want to lose weight, but am I engaging in these behaviors? These are some questions. So these are some real strategies that you can do, and the people who are listening and watching, is part of intuitive eating is attuning to our body or hunger cues and moving away from diets. But I also believe that you need to begin to think about and ask yourself, am I restricting food because I want to lose weight? So am I exercising because I want to lose weight, but am I still eating, right? So part of the anti-diet is that, like, there's a lot of nuances, but are you restricting completely food groups, right? That, and we know we need all the nutrients from all the different foods. So one is, are you restricting food? How do you feel when you're eating these foods? And why are you eating them? Does it create shame and guilt? So you want to lose weight, you can still enjoy the foods that you like without feeling guilty and shame. But we have to work on those narratives. So that goes into, how can individuals recognize, do I feel guilty? Do I want to go and burn off what I ate? And I'm
yeah.
telling you by experience, because I went through this whole diet culture, right? So eating, feeling bad about myself, and going to the gym and punishing myself, and burning all those calories or the food, that is part of the diet culture mentality. But if you come from a place of compassion and say, my food is nourishing, my food is X, Y, and Z. And then you're going to go to the gym because you need that movement. You
Yeah.
need to decompress, release that stress. And instead of thinking, I'm going to go and, like, punish myself because of what I ate, that's part of the diet culture.
I thank you. And as I was thinking about that, I'm like, notes to myself, I'm going to come back and rewatch this so I can write these questions down. And so to share my thinking process with you all, because I learned so much from these segments. And so I will be going back and listening to it and writing those questions down to reflect for myself. And so these are really valuable tools. Okay.
Yeah, so really respecting and honoring and giving gratitude to your body, Dr. Lisa, and everyone. And I actually was just thinking about that today, of how it's okay to have all these different feelings and complicated feelings about our body, because part of diet culture and then the anti-diet movement is like body positivity, body acceptance, body neutrality. And you're like, but what the heck? And I'm here to tell you that you can move. It's like this fluid process. You can say, I love myself today. Ay, que me miro bien chula. I look beautiful. And then you feel awful, like, the next day. Like, that is okay. And it is so valid. And there's days where you're like, my body is the least important thing, body neutrality. You can fluctuate. They're intersecting. And so let's not compartmentalize and say, this is how I feel, body positivity, body neutrality, body acceptance. You can fluctuate throughout the day with those. It's very fluid, and it's being in this in between space.
Thank you for that. It is fluid. It is a process. And I think that, like you said, that's the big way of the best way to begin to challenge it. And I guess accepting the fluidity of it instead of falling into some restricting categories of some sort, right? So I love that. I'm going to transition to the next question, which is so that we can learn more about how this could be harmful for maybe first gen. So and when I say first gens, this involves first gen professionals, folks who are maybe the first in their families to have a corporate job, the first in their families to go to college, the first in their families to navigate this new system. And so it can encompass a few different folks within that, right? Like first gen immigrant. And so when you hear me ask that question, are there any specific considerations for folks who are first gen?
Oh my goodness, this was one of the toughest questions because I have so much to say. And rooted in diet culture is white supremacy. So we have to say it, we have to acknowledge it, right? So rooted in diet culture is white supremacy and notions of perfectionism. Okay. So I'm an immigrant, I'm first generation. So I wanted to make that intervention and connection because when we are first gen, we have a lot of responsibility. We're paving the way and we want to do things right. We want to do things the right way. We want to follow the right path. You see, like even that feels like oppressive. Like we need to follow this. But and that is diet culture también. It's intricately connected. So when I think about first gen students or professionals, we're guided, this idea of the American dream or achieving and doing things this way, but it's still sometimes really rooted in Western ideas and ideologies. And that is connected with diet culture because it connects to food. It connects to even our bodies. It connects to how our society perceives people from minoritized communities. So it's harmful in everything, like in the workplace and everything. I don't know if I'm making sense. Like it's like I don't see them separated. Like it's they're best friends. They're not best friends, but you see the intersection of that. So yeah, that's part of my answer.
Yeah, no, I think what I heard you really say there is that when it comes to being first, sometimes there's this mindset. And I hear these terms all the time of being a trailblazer, of doing things a different way, of like just high achieving, perfectionism in many ways, right? And I specialize in the imposter phenomenon and perfectionism, not asking for help, needing to do things on our own, feeling that we should know everything is especially common in first gens. And so I think in the way that it could feel even harmful, if I try to summarize sort of what you shared, would be that first gens, if you have this mindset of like, you do everything a specific way, any diets, what are they? They are like a regimented plan that has very clear instructions, a very specific pathway. And if you apply that to any other like workplace setting, or those expectations that we may place on ourselves as first gen to be so high achieving, that because I'm so high achieving, I should look a certain way because that presence is what defines success, or that body means I'm successful, that whatever means, and so that's sort of what I think, if I'm trying to simplify it a little bit, because no, you're right. I'm asking you to tease apart something that is really enmeshed.
Yes, you did. You articulated it so well, Dr. Lisa. Excellent. But part of that perfectionism, how does it manifested in our food is this clean eating. Like that means no toxins, no pesticides, preservatives, food coloring. That is very elitist. And that is rooted on racism, and it's rooted on who has access to food. And then we shame communities of color. We shame farm workers who don't even have access to some of the grocery stores because they're eating processed food or packaged food or even canned food. Food is food, right? So that neutrality on food and not giving it a moral value is still connected to even our own professions and the work that we do. So
yes. And as you were talking, I was like, this fits kind of this question that we were talking about. So I just put it on there. I know that you have so much more to say about this, but for purposes of time, maybe one note, because we can have the whole talk just.
Yes. Yes, I will recommend
Mhm.
folks to go and check Dr. Sabrina String's Fearing the Black Body. It's such an amazing, not only because she's a sociologist, but she has this amazing book that is tracing the history of anti-Blackness and how it's rooted with all these intersections that you're saying. You cannot talk about fat phobia without talking about anti-Blackness and racism, because that's how Black bodies were perceived since slaves were, since Africans were kidnapped and brought here. So fat phobia is rooted in anti-Blackness. So if we talk about just fat phobia and not racism, we're dismissing this racialized history of oppression of Black folks and how that still is manifested today, and how Black folks are treated in terms of healthcare, in terms of the criminal justice system, etc.
No, I love that you said that. And as you were talking, I pulled up the book, I put it in we're going to be putting this in the show notes so that people can have an easier way to access that. Thank you for that. It's like, you're right. It's like, even just trying to make one point about it isn't going to necessarily help people truly understand. So that,
Yeah.
thank
And
you.
anything that moves away from normality. So like you said, to need to just say one thing, but it's like I want to say so much. Dr. Lee said, like BIPOC, the LGBTQIA community, like that it like deviates from this idea of normality, of what normal bodies are, and how how scientific racism really influence immigrant laws, and how that shaped like how we view immigrant and immigrant bodies and queer bodies. Like all these intersections are connected. We can't just compartmentalize individuals as just one thing. But at the end, all this really is rooted in anti-Blackness.
All right. And so to learn more about that, that is a book by Sabrina Strings, Strings, and it's called Fearing the Black Body, the Racial Origins of Fat Phobia. And so that's the full title. And I'm just Sabrina Strings. Yes, I didn't copy her name when I was copying things over, or copy their name. Okay, so I will make sure I put that in the show notes for folks to access after. So I just have two more questions. And so this one is, if any other resources, that book sounds like an amazing resource, but if you have any other resources that you'd recommend, I'm sure you have a wealth of resources, so we can start with maybe one of your favorites. So something to help them to learn more about how to challenge oppressive food narratives, develop a healthier relationship. Obviously, go back and re-listen to this for like the Cliff Notes version, but
Yes. Well, if I can put a little note there, like check out my Instagram. I have a lot of free content available there. Hopefully, in the future, I'll have my own book on this area. But there is intuitive eating. There's a lot of intuitive eating information out there. Intuitive eating is an actual book, learning more about health of every size. And we talked about this earlier, just really appreciating and being compassionate with yourself as you're navigating your body image days with body neutrality, body positivity. Those are just some like the basic resources. And what people can do now and basically for the rest of your life is begin to kind of question and challenge those internalized narratives and be a disruptor. And that comes with privilege as well. So that I want to acknowledge that. So because we come from marginalized backgrounds, some people have more access and are safer to be disruptors than others. So just caveat right there.
It's so hard because with all of the different intersections of privilege, it's a whole other conversation. But I remember when I first started learning about privilege, I realized how much privilege I had. Growing up, being working class and coming from different marginalized backgrounds, I felt that I didn't have any privileges, but that's how privilege works. We don't realize and aware of the privileges we have. And learning more about them, I'm like, I am so privileged. I have so much access, and especially now with our degrees, when you have these titles,
Yes.
they open doors. They open
Yes.
doors, and that's a huge privilege.
Yes, it is. And it's still hard though. But yes, it's true. That's another episode.
Oh yeah, it's hard. It's hard. No, that's the thing. I'm not trying to make myself harder. It's so hard. But in having to like step into that as well, at least I think of
Yeah.
myself, in different ways. It's like, how do I how do I stay mindful about it? And having
Yes.
self-compassion when I make a mistake, when I inevitably say something that's problematic. It's learning from those. And
And
so
and taking accountability when we may unconsciously or consciously create harm because of those privileges identities that we may say something, comment, or give our opinion, and then realize, oh, that was insensitive, right? So we're human beings, we make mistakes. It doesn't justify, right? But it says what are we going to do? What work do we need to continue to do and be accountable to those communities where we may have had an impact. And that takes courage. All this work takes a lot of courage and vulnerability and a big learning. I don't have it all together. I don't know it all.
No, and I really appreciate you saying that, because earlier I started and I introduced you as an expert, which I very much believe you are, just to be clear. But I think it's really important for us to acknowledge that even though we have our areas of expertise, there's only so much we have capacity to just know and understand.
Yes.
We always are going to continue to be learning more.
Yes.
And there's new research, there's more research, there's so much that changes in society, and keeping up with that. And so as we talk about how to keep up with all of the changes, Doctora Hortencia Jimenez mentioned earlier how you can follow her on social media to learn more. But are there other ways that people can support you in your work with you in any capacity? What are options for folks?
Yes. So I have my podcast. Please support my podcast. It's Dismantling Diet Culture, Being Calladita. My Instagram and TikTok is the same, at Dr. Hortencia Jimenez. I have my website. I do workshops and speaking engagements rooted as a woman, woman of color from an immigrant background, in Spanish and English, fluent, bilingual. So connect with me. I'll be more than happy. I do a lot of service in my community. I do a lot of volunteer work. And of course, for me to continue to do a lot of this free unpaid labor in my community on social media, I would love for you to book me for a speaking engagement.
Yes. Please book Doctora Jimenez for your next speaking engagement. She is an excellent speaker. If this wasn't already an amazing example of how wonderful and knowledgeable she is, and what a wealth of resource and knowledge, just generally she is, along with the most amazing energy. And so I am going to take these off so people can see our names as we end. But this was so wonderful, Doctora. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you for sharing all of these amazing consejos with us. And I'm always so grateful to you. So for those of you watching, listening, please share, subscribe, follow. And I'm still new to all of this, so we're learning. Maybe next time I'll have another call to action. So thank you again.
Gracias. Thank you so much, Dr. Lisette, for the invitation. And everyone, please continue to support Dr. Lisette, the first gen psychologist.
Thank you.